Ryan is not able to be with us today, so I will be playing host. We also have with us Charles Tassel, our COO and Director of Legislative Affairs, Jeff Greenberger, who you've seen with us several times before with Greenberger and Brewer, and Brad Grovich from Google talking about Nest today. So we will get right into it. First of all, I want to thank our broadcast sponsors, as always, Home Depot Pro and PPG Paints. The Home Depot Pro program with National NREIA has several different benefits, starting with 20% off paint. So PPG has been a terrific sponsor and supporter in this area. It also applies to other paints with Home Depot, including Behr and other lines. But we also have other special programs like the rebate program, like the appliance program, cabinet program. If you have questions about the benefits that we have available under the Home Depot program, you can certainly reach out to your local REIA and find out more. I also want to thank our sponsors and benefits providers that have been really supportive of us during all of these meetings and during this time, and those that participated with us during our mid-year event. National NREIA has been around as a nonprofit since 1985. Our mission is to promote, to protect, and to educate. And we have about 120 or so local groups with 40,000 plus local members that are part of the network. And we want to thank you for being with us today, for being part of that local network, and for supporting the industry. If you aren't part of a local REIA and would like to find one, you can go to the National REIA website and go here to find a local group. It will show you a map of the US and you can find the group that you're looking for closest to you. Also, any of the things that we talk about today that are of vital importance that need reference will be there on our COVID-19 update page, and you will get a replay. If you're on this call today and signed up ahead of time, you will get a copy of the replay and the slides from today. Just a disclaimer, any of the things that we talk about today, even though we do have an attorney on the call, we are not giving legal advice. We're just talking about our opinions and overviewing the information that we have available. Any of the financial information that we talk about in the industry update portion of the program also is just informational only and reporting of the news. So if you have finance or legal questions, please make sure that you reach out to a local professional in your area about the questions that you have. I am going to now then turn the meeting over to our experts in residence about what's going on with the new updates. I know the CDC just came out with some clarifications, helpful in states where the state does not have more restrictive regulations, not so much, as I understand it, Jeff, in the states where the state is more restrictive. So can you tell us a little bit more, Charles and Jeff, about what's going on with that update and any reports at all on the stimulus, please?
All right, so I'll start us off here. You know, usually in December, there's a report that comes out that says there are two words or two new words that have been either utilized or new to the category or new to humans in America or are being added to the dictionary. There's kind of some different categories that they utilize. And a couple of them that are overutilized. And there are two words, COVID and unprecedented, are two words I never would like to hear again after 2020. And we're only in October, mind you. We still have to get to December yet, but, and for that matter, January. But as I've mentioned to you guys over the years, election season means gridlock. That is exactly where we are at. This is the heat is turned up all the way. October surprises are dropping all around us. There are, you know, the shrill as it gets right now is, this is it, folks, hold on. I would suggest to you that this is the time when those scary people show up at your door, knocking on them, asking for your vote. You thought I meant Halloween. But what I would suggest to you is you're going to see a lot of people dressed up in different costumes, from conspiracy theorists and conspiracy nuts to rumor mongers and chicken littles. Hold on through all of it, folks. You've got about 3 weeks of it. We get through that, we can breathe again. There may be some nonsense that goes on for a little while. Just hold on. Once we get through that, you're looking at a lame duck session, probably in Congress, that will probably move something forward. There's all kinds of rumors and discussion about getting something done. And the reality is, once we're past the election, there is a likelihood of getting something done on rental assistance being included into a HEROES Act or a CARES 2 program. Right now, the White House is sitting at 1.7. They're negotiating on behalf of the Senate, 1.7 trillion, that is. And the House has come down to 2.2 trillion. A lot of this comes down to where does that last $500 billion go? What's a few $100 billion among friends, right? Whether it's funding for the cities and the states, who gets that? And depending on how the election goes, sides are either going to soften or, and it'll move towards that 1.7 and that 2.2. Most likely, we will see something after the election in a lame duck session. So hold on. And at that time is really where we've been pushing for rental assistance. In the meantime, the other side of things, so we're talking about the legislative and executive branch there, is the judicial branch. And the reason I mention that isn't to go to Amy Coney Barrett or anything along those lines, but to talk about the 26 plus federal cases that have been filed against the CDC's eviction moratorium. August 8th, the president announced that there's going to be some rulings coming out, including HUD and the CDC. Everybody said, why would the CDC be included with all the HUD stuff? Well, on September 4th, we found out why. So those are a few of the things that have been kind of working through. There's lawsuits that have been filed. My understanding is that even Tuesday next week at 10 o'clock, there's settlement discussion on one of the key cases that may alleviate some of the problems. And some of that, if you remember, 10/9, last Friday in the evening or late afternoon, there's another set of FAQs that came out from CDC. Part of this was some clarification, and I'll defer to our attorney in residence, Jeff Greenberger, on this one. But the CDC came forward and said, we have a few clarifications, and we'd like to give those to you. And I'm going to share this with you folks. This was the amazing part. The discussion behind the scenes with the CDC attorneys, they did not understand that every state, even every courthouse in each county, let alone the judges in each courthouse, were interpreting this entirely differently. They said, it's clear on its face. Why? Of course this is going to be unilaterally applied. And once they started to realize it was not, and as some of these very astute attorneys explained to them that some of their language isn't even applicable the way that they set it up in their ruling for certain states, that pushed back on them to say, well, we need to give some clarification on what it is we actually meant with this edict from on high. So with that, I'll refer over to Jeff. If you wouldn't mind picking up and you want to pick up on the FAQ and kind of what we've learned and where we're at this point.
Right. So hi, everybody. I'll keep my comments short. As Rebecca alluded to, the clarifications that the CDC gave still only really apply in the states where the CDC moratorium is the rule of law in the state. If you're in a state that has a more restrictive eviction moratorium, these clarifications that the CDC issued don't really apply in your state. Your state moratorium or restrictions trump, excuse the pun, the CDC moratorium, and thus these clarifications. And it's interesting, there was in my home state of Ohio, there was a dismissal of a case on last Friday. BW Investments versus Secretary Alazar in federal court that laid this stuff out. And it was about 2 hours after this dismissal came out that the CDC updated their website. So this is the proverbial chicken and egg, whether this case caused these clarifications or whether the CDC buy-in through the Department of Justice got together and because of this case issued these things, or whether the CDC came and said, we're going to be issuing these things, so sign off on this dismissal of this case. I don't know, but the case and the clarifications on the website are basically the same. And the interesting things that came out of this is that the clarifications and this dismissal both said the order was not intended to prevent a landlord from filing an eviction. Now, when we were together the last time with me, what we told you is, wow, this is really restrictive, because if you were served with one of these declarations before you file, you can't file. You might remember me talking about this now looks like a race to the courthouse, right? You have to file before you're served with one of these declarations, so at least you get the chance to, I think I called it, cross-examine the tenant in court to get that opportunity. That appears to have changed. And I'll also tell you, although this has been out for a week, the judges and magistrates that we've appeared in front of in the last, well, Monday was a holiday, so the last 3.5 days, don't know what to do with this clarification yet. Even as recently as this morning, they were kicking cases around because they're waiting for someone of a higher authority to tell them what to do. They knew to stop these cases right away, but now this clarification that tells them, oh no, let these evictions fly, let them be filed even if you are served with a CDC declaration first. They don't seem to be acting on that real quickly. But this clarification says absolutely. The order permits evictions, or does not prevent a landlord from filing an eviction in a state court. So what I told you earlier has been clarified. It appears, again, talk to your own attorney, but you should be able to file an eviction even if you were served with a CDC declaration prior to you getting an eviction filed in your court. Again, only in states where the CDC moratorium is the law of your state. Okay? Second, it clarified that the order expressly permits evictions for reasons other than non-payment of rent. That would seem obvious. The language in the actual Federal Register said this only applies to non-payment of rent evictions. I can't tell you how many judges I've appeared in front of personally that said, out of an abundance of caution, we're holding all evictions. And I would literally point the black and white language of the Federal Register out to them, and they used the out of an abundance of caution, we're just not sure what to do. And I'm like, how about reading the black and white text of the order? And they'd be like, well, Mr. Greenberger, you're a little snarky, aren't you? And I'm like, I don't know. I was always trained to read the law. I thought that's what you guys did too. So this clarification makes it clear, as we said in the last call, but the judges didn't seem to like to read that language, that it's clear you can file an eviction for property damage, criminal activity, all those things. In case you were told in court you couldn't do that, this clarifies that you can. The other one is this clarification. This is a big one to me. Nowhere does the order prohibit a landlord from attempting to demonstrate that the tenant has wrongfully claimed protections. This is that cross-examination thing that I've been talking about. A lot of judges did not want to hear you or your attorney saying, okay, if you're going to claim that you've done something to make partial payments, show me. Right? They were like, Mr. Greenberger, this is, or whoever your attorney is, this declaration's been filed, so shush, and let's continue them on out till next year. Move on. And I'm sure your attorneys have been arguing, no, you actually have to now examine this declaration because it's under the penalty of perjury. Just like many other declarations under the penalty of perjury, courts have to examine these declarations. And judges are like, I don't think we can, Mr. Greenberger. I'm like, yeah, Judge. Yeah, you do. And this clarifies, yes, they are supposed to, and we are allowed to. And finally, when a tenant is entitled to protections, and this is the other big one to me, when the tenant is entitled to a protection, the order does not bar the landlord from commencing the eviction and proceeding, provided the actual eviction does not occur while the order remains in place. What we take this to mean is, as we read it originally, and as I said originally, I interpreted this order to mean that the eviction hearing should occur. It's the set out that can't occur. And everybody poo-pooed. Said, no, you can't have the hearing. No. That sentence says you should have your hearing, you should get your order of possession, but you can't have your set out, right? So all these cases that are getting pushed out until January, and as Charles said last time I was on this group call with you, this thing's probably going to get extended to June 2027. Who knows how long this thing's going to get pushed out till? And then there's going to be this avalanche of continued hearings. We would like to see, and the judges are not buying this yet in my counties, that the eviction hearing should occur regardless of a declaration. There should be a finding of possession, and that order should go on. And then if the declaration is well-founded, the only thing that should happen is the possession order, the writ, the order of a set out should be stayed until January. The hope being, like next week, when there is this the settlement negotiation on this CDC order, if some parts of it are set aside, or hopefully the whole thing's emasculated, we won't have to all go back to court and relitigate these things. We'll have these set out orders just stayed, and then we can go back and ask the courts just to now issue the set outs again.
So Attorney Greenberger, let me ask you a question on this real quick.
Yes, Judge.
Yeah. So in the event that as a property owner, I have somebody who didn't pay September rent, for whatever reason, gave me a declaration, I'm moving into October, and I've seen some vacation trips, I've seen a number of, their new car will be extreme. They've got a yacht sitting in my rental. And I move forward with filing on them. The question I have isn't even regarding that side of it, but does the meter continue to run? And here's what I mean, because I've been informed that if I file, and once I file for that first cause of action, the meter stops at the time that I start filing that cause of action.
Which meter?
So the meter for the amount of, yes, not for the attorney fees. I understand those meters keep running, but the meter for the rent,
no.
Are they responsible for the rent once we file eviction? And if so, should we hold off on filing until we're further down if we know that they're not paying?
No. Remember, part of the declaration that the tenant is signing, I'll read you part of the declaration they have to sign. I understand that I still must pay rent or make housing payments and comply with all other obligations that I have under my tenancy lease agreement or similar contract. I understand that fees, penalties, or interest for not paying rent or making housing payments on time as required by my lease agreement or similar contract may still be charged or collected. I further understand that at the end of this temporary halt on evictions on December 31st, my housing provider may require payment in full for all payments not made prior to and during the temporary halt, and failure to pay may make me subject to eviction pursuant to state and local laws. To the extent that CDC has lawmaking authority, to me, that nothing stops the meter.
And that's where the concern comes in, because in states where they say, well, you filed, so your meter stops there.
I don't think so, because I've never known, I mean, look, every state can be different, but I've never known a state to stop an eviction, the meter running until possession is returned to the landlord.
Okay, and thank you. That helps to clarify, because that was a question I've been asked to me, and I wanted to make sure we addressed that. So
right now, if you file if you're in a state where you can file the second cause at the same time, you need to make sure you state that second cause. In some states, it's also a third cause. So it's the second cause, they owe me rent through the date I filed, and then a third cause through when I get possession.
Gotcha.
Right? Some states are tricky that way. Some states like Kentucky's not a state, it's a commonwealth. Okay, but you can't even file for damages. You have to file a second separate lawsuit for damages, so that shouldn't impact you. But just make sure your local attorney's helping you set up your cause for damages till you get possession. In some states, that may make, the way these are stacking up, I'm filing $9,000 and $10,000 damage claims because people haven't paid since March anyway. You may not want to even file those until you know what your damages are, because it may put you over the damage limit in the local, we call them municipal or district courts around here. It may put you up in a superior court just to get your damages, because you may exceed those limits of the lower courts. But
Right.
again, I don't even know how collectible these things are going to be. I teach class, 1-hour classes now to landlords on bankruptcy, just because I expect everyone's going to start getting bankruptcies out the, whatever the politically correct term is now.
Overflow, yes.
We're going to see.
So Jeff, one of the things, I was on a HUD panel yesterday, and we had a discussion. We had all the housing counselors across the country were on, and we were giving, it wasn't so much a Q&A, but we were giving them perspective. And one of the things that we talked about was and this is for our members here, was communicating with your residents. Show that you're communicating with your residents. And then as a property owner, when one of these housing counselors or the agencies reach out to you, and when they let you know that they have CARES funding, you're going to see more and more of that. Those are typically, you're able to take that to the bank. When you get CARES funding, there's money that's there. And so make sure that you're accepting of that. If at all possible, if you can work an arrangement with it, that is one of the best things you can do. Rental assistance is one of the acceptable forms for CARES funding to be spent. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because CARES funds have been sent out. And remember, this is the original CARES back in March and April. A lot of states have held those funds. They're passing them down to municipalities, and municipalities are starting to spend them. And states are getting nervous right now, and municipalities are as well, because those funds have to be expended by December 31st. So rental assistance looks like an easy way to push some of those funds out, take care of constituents, and guess what? It makes us very happy at that point, because we get rental assistance in. So that's one piece you're going to see. And even in that discussion yesterday, it was mentioned that there are rumors that at the very least, whether it's the HEROES Act or an extension of the CDC, most likely this moratorium will be extended to March 31st. So hang on. If you need to get your capital arranged, stabilize yourself. I think the declaration, as Jeff has mentioned, will tighten up, but that most likely we'll see an extension till March 31st for that moratorium. So,
yeah.
Jeff, do you have other comments you want to add in or follow up with here?
Two quick things. Example, in Kentucky, that money that King Bashir is handing out has got a lot of hooks on it. You have to give up 10%. You have to waive all your fees and penalties. You have to agree not to serve another eviction for 45 days after you've received the money. I mean, and you need a law degree to read the document he prepared to accept the money. It's just loaded with all sorts of little ifs, ands, and buts. I've had 3 or 4 clients call me, and it took me about a day to deconstruct a couple of these sentences. They're just all over the place. And the other thing is, with that money, what Charles was saying, and I'm not saying this is going to go through, but I mean, the Democratic version of the HEROES Act that they passed has the eviction moratorium going for another year. So, those are the things that scare me. Is just I don't know what's going to come out of this sausage grinder. So, as the great Jerry Reed said in the movie Smokey and the Bandit, hold on to your ass, Fred.
So, along those lines, let me follow up with a transition here on another issue, which is, I mentioned to you we're in the final stages of elections, and I would remind you, anybody who has legislative committees, if you are working with candidates at all, a candidate is far more impressionable than an elected official. Let me say that again. A candidate is far more impressionable than an elected official. Build your relationship now with them. Talk with them now. Make sure you're there. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on this. We need to have relationships on both sides of the aisle. So make sure you are working with, and ideally, you're going to have the diversity within your own association, your own chapter, to be on both sides of the aisle and have relationships on both sides of the aisle. Get past the politics of it. This is about the industry and making sure business works well, so that when we get on the other side of the election, we can build those relationships with whoever wins as the dust settles, and make sure we're putting ourselves from a chapter and association in the best position possible. So just encourage you to do that. And I know we want to kind of shut the radios off, shut the televisions off, and put our heads in the sand for a bit, but make sure you're engaging them to let them know you're there. Our legislative committees have talked in the past. There's candidate questionnaires out there. All of those kind of things need to be engaged. This is the time to utilize them. So I encourage you to be out there with it. That's all that I have, Rebecca. I don't know, Jeff, if you have anything else you want to add on there.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate the clarification. I know a lot of people were looking for that. Many of you are in states where the state is more restrictive. Kentucky is one of those states. Illinois is one of those states. Several of you are in that position. At that point, it's your state. And I know Jeff has had some significant challenges with Kentucky because of that. But for those of you who are not, those CDC clarifications could be helpful as you go through these challenges. Now, let's talk about something more exciting. About 3 months ago, we talked about virtual showings, whether that be for rentals or for rehabs that you were then retailing, or even if you needed to do that as you were wholesaling properties to other investors, being able to use technology to do those, as well as some management functions, being able to do remote management through new technology. And we went through a significant amount of the Google products, but that was me talking about Google products, not the experts talking about Google products. So today I am so thankful that we have on Brian from Home Depot and Brad from Google to talk about the products and to answer some questions about those that I'm sure I left a lot of you wondering about some of the specifics, as we did just go through an overview. So Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the relationship and why we're so excited to have Google as a partner, and about the relationship that we have and how we're able through the Home Depot relationship to bring this to our members.
Sounds great, Rebecca. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the Google team this afternoon, and to all of the National NREIA chapter leaders and the members that are out there today. My name is Brian Aguirre. I'm the National Account Manager for our relationship with the National Real Estate Investors Association, and hope you and yours are in good health and good spirits, and you're closing out the Friday this week the best you can. So we're excited to have a chance today to just highlight a product that you may know we sell at our stores, and we're just excited to have this chance to continue to live one of our values at the Home Depot, which is living and building strong relationships, and the second is just being innovative and being sure that we're ahead of the curve. And with our partnership with Google, we achieve that. So today I have the pleasure of introducing Brad and Monica, who are with us from the Google team that work with us, Home Depot, and manage all of this for us. So with that, I'm going to transition the call over to Brad, who's going to just go over some of the cool things Google has in store. And we want you to take away from this that, hey, we are the smart home destination with the Home Depot and Google, and be mindful of that. And we're going to begin to provide you with more information so you could best provide and promote this to your members in your MSAs and throughout the country. So thank you for what you do for the Home Depot, and look forward to hearing this presentation here with you as well. Brad, thank you for this, and take it away.
Yep. So first of all, everyone, thank you very much for having us. We greatly appreciate it. I will warn everybody on the line, I have a 150-pound St. Bernard underneath my desk right now. So if you hear snoring, it's not me. You have not bored me, but she is 10 and a half years old, and she'll do her own thing no matter what. So with that, I just want to say, everyone, I'm Brad Grovich. I lead wholesale partnerships for Google Nest. I'm one of the original guys going back to 2014. Have worked both in the retail setting, pro setting, distribution, across the board, and just want to say what a great partner Home Depot has been. And Rebecca, it was a pleasure meeting you several months ago down in Nashville when the world was still semi-normal. Hopefully we get back to that place in the near future. But I'm going to give everyone like sort of the 10,000 foot view on Google Nest and where we started from, where we're going, and what it means for your businesses and your tenants as well. So smart home is no longer just a fad, right? If you look back at when smart home became a thing, it's going back to the Jetsons, right? The Jetsons actually launched back in the 1950s. We've come a long way. It's kind of become a reality where smart and connected is no longer a nice to have. It's a must have, right? So when people come to your house, one of the first questions they're going to ask either your kids, grandkids, or relatives or just friends, hey, what's your Wi-Fi password? Because everyone's going to be sucking up your bandwidth no matter what. So consumers want a smart home that works. They want it to be easy. They want it to be functional, and they want to just be able to save time and just and move along with their life. Monica, next slide, please. And more importantly than anything, why does this smart home matter to us? It's a helpful home that's going to make you comfortable, safe, and make your everyday life even better and not intrusive. So that's kind of where we play. So a helpful home is a couple things. It's complete, it's contextual, and it's respectful. Complete being, we want to make sure we have products that are not only first party made by Google and Nest, but also part of our Google Assistant partnerships. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Assistant in a little bit. Contextual, right? So we want to make sure that some of these things, if you look at the iconic Nest Learning Thermostat, it's almost like a piece of artwork sitting on the wall. And then some of the other products that we have, we want to really kind of fade into the background and just be part of your everyday experience and not be a dominant thing. And most importantly, when it comes to Google, it's around respectful. So we bring really a full, helpful home here. That when we talk about that respectful application in the home, we want to make sure it doesn't hinder your life. We want to make sure we're not being intrusive. And we also want to make sure that we are respecting your privacy and the privacy of your customers. So some of the things that we think about when we build that partner or that helpful home, product solutions. So that could be assistant enabled. So when you say, okay, G, do this, right? We have security platforms, so cameras and awareness. So everything from a doorbell camera to higher end cameras that you would have outside, 1080p, night vision, two-way talk, all those great things. Connectivity, something I talked about earlier, really important, right? One of the things you don't want to have, especially in the world of COVID, everyone fighting for the bandwidth and having some equal opportunity to make sure people can have presentations like this. Energy and energy savings. So if you look at all the Nest thermostats that are out there on the market, today we have 3. But we really want to talk about those benefits for you guys of having rebates, right? Energy rebates if for not only your customers and people that are doing rent, but also for you as a landlord. Want to make sure that you can set certain temperature ranges. The last thing you probably want to do is in the middle of the winter, someone has their thermostat set to 80 degrees and all the windows are open, right? So you can set comfortable temperature ranges. Maybe it's between 68 and 72 and you know what's going on. And think about connectivity as well and entertainment. So like we have different products like Chromecast Ultra for streaming, simple devices using the Home app. So the Google Home app is sort of the one-stop shop. Helpful services when you think about beyond Google Nest, Google Maps. We actually own Waze as well, so I'm sure you're probably using one of those too. YouTube. The amount of content that is streamed via YouTube is amazing. Google Photos, where you have using the AI of the Google platform to recognize different people and their faces. The Nest Aware of knowing when you're home, when you're away, so we can set back that temperature, for example, and we're no longer heating and cooling based on if somebody's there or not there. And then machine learning, right? One of the best things about being part of the mothership of Alphabet and Google in general is we have amazing resources, data scientists, and AI that's going to really help continue to make not only our products today great, but even better as we continue to learn. Next, Monica, please. So when we think about the Google Nest ecosystem, it's really all about the assistant, right? There's 2 assistant platforms that you'll hear about. You hear about the Alexa platform and also the Google Assistant platform. So what makes us better, right? Number 1, we use Google search, the best search engine. Alexa would be using Bing. I'm sure it's a fine platform, but I don't think people are going to use, I'm going to go out and Bing something, right? We're going to just say, hey, I'm going to go out and Google and I'll get some information. It's smarter, it's personal. So we, based on some of the activities that you're doing, they'll make sure that the suggestions are personal and proactive for you and make your life a little bit easier. And it's been there for you for a long time, right? Over 5,000 devices have these, has the assistant built into it today. And that continues to grow day by day by day. So when we look at making partnerships, we think about a thoughtful ecosystem, right? So we talked earlier about a first party or made by Google. And that's everything from Pixel phones, Chromebooks, Chromebooks, Pixel books, Google Nest products, the full portfolio of everything from thermostats, cameras, displays, awareness products, Wi-Fi, anything else you could think of. Then we also have some made for Google products, and we'll talk about that. It's where it might fit really nice into your environment, like Nest DL Lock, for example, a smart lock that we know that knows when you're home and when you're away, set codes for certain people to come in and out and grant access. We're really good at software. Yale, for example, is really good at hardware. They've been around for a long time. That's Envoy. So we said, hey, you guys do the hardware, we'll do the software. It's a perfect marriage. And we start thinking about just Google Assistant enabled products. So everything from Sony, Sonos, TP-Link, Samsung, Dish. There's a pretty popular Dish commercial that has a grandfather holding his son. I think he's watching a ball game, and he picks up his Dish remote and says, and it just turns down the Nest thermostat, right? That's all built in through the assistant. Next, Monica, please. So what I really wanted to do here is kind of spend some time here talking about the new Nest thermostat, right? We just launched it on Monday, and you're going to start seeing a lot of press around that. So a little bit of a history lesson. In 2011, the first Nest Learning thermostat came out. If anyone here has seen a lot of our products, it does have a little bit of that old school Apple feel. There's a reason for it. The inventor or the founder and CEO of Nest was the same person who invented the iPhone and the iPod. So Tony Fadell, who led us for the first 5-6 years before he went off into the sunset and is living in the south of France right now, living the dream. But you're starting to see a little bit of that Apple and Google feel together, right? It's superpowers combined. Nest was purchased by Google in 2014. We were out on our own for a little bit, what we call another bet, just to kind of get us up and running. Got rolled back into the mothership about 1.5 years ago, and we started launching the Google Nest platform together. And then we're talking a little bit about the newest launch of the Nest thermostat earlier this week. So why does this new thermostat matter? When we launched the iconic Nest Learning thermostat, that's at a higher price range, right? That's at $250 price range. We came out a couple years ago with the Nest E, still very popular. Thermostat has done extremely well, but it was at that $169 MSRP. And we still knew there was a huge maturing market of people that were really in that sub 150 range. And when you're looking at a lot of those sub 150 thermostats, they're not that great. So to us, this was a great opportunity for get in there, cause some positive disruption, and really get out there and do some things. And not only is it that MSRP at $129 at the Home Depot, the beauty of it is when you start looking at some of these rewards and rebates, some of these are $100 rebates. So essentially, you're getting an amazing product at $29 once you go through the rebate process with your utility provider. But again, get it from the Home Depot. It's really easy, and then you get that on the back end. It's perfect. So as we think about it, do less and save more. So affordable energy throughout the day. You knows when you're home and when you're away. Access from anywhere as long as you have a smartphone, right? I drove cross country 10 times growing up. Never worried about having my phone on me because we didn't have them. Now I can't go to 7-Eleven or Wawa as we'd have in the Philly area without like, oh my God, I don't have my phone, right? So access from anywhere as long as you have the internet. Valuable alerts. So this is really important. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, but we'll start now noticing based on HVAC monitoring degradation. So if we know that your heating or your cooling is taking longer than it should based on historical record, weather patterns, and some other things, we're going to give you that alert. So instead of getting a customer or one of your tenants calling you at 3 in the morning, I don't have heat, in the winter, or when it's 1,000,000 degrees out in the summer, you're going to get that kind of heads up. So we have multiple different types of alerts, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And very easy install. So you could do it yourself. You could have a pro do it. Doesn't matter. Whatever is easiest for you. So talk about saving energy. So at 129, it pays for itself really quick. Schedules, you can schedule it when you're home and when you're away, and we'll continue to give the user a couple pushes like, hey, by the way, if you make these adjustments, you can save even more energy. Go ahead, Monica. Again, we talked about access. So again, access from anywhere. So not only via your app, but also through the Google Assistant. When you just say, hey, Google, do this, it does it, right? So you can say, set my temperature to 68, set my temperature to 72, whatever it is. And it's all, and again, we talk about encryption and data privacy. It's all very important to us. So we have two-step verification to make sure that our users are being safe. Valuable alerts. So it monitors your heating and cooling, like I talked about before. We want to make sure we're being proactive around this stuff, so we can make sure the homeowner and as both the landlord and as the tenant knows when there's a problem. So we have severe alerts, we have intermittent alerts, and we have less severe alerts that can kind of give you some guidance of, hey, maybe do I need to pro out today to do a fix? Is this something that can wait a week or two? And make sure that we're getting the right level technician out there as well. Next, Monica. Again, we talked about super easy install. Everything is done through the app. DIY, usually less than 30 minutes. The best way I can say it is it's a 1.5 beer install. That's what I've always kind of found that worked easiest for me. It's removing the previous thermostat and making sure you have compatibility, which is really easy. Comes in 4 different colors. Unfortunately, we don't have the Home Depot orange color that I'm sure Brian would love to have. But, and we talk about sustainability, 49% of it is coming from recycled products. So not only is it beautiful, it's also, it's environmentally friendly. So talk about HVAC alerts and why they're truly helpful. So we have a couple, right? We have urgent alerts like, hey, heads up, something really bad's about to happen to your system. Let's get a pro out there. Let's get a handyman out there and make sure we can get the right fix. So severe heating, severe cooling, and furnace heads up. It's the last thing you want to be dealing with. I own my a rental property out in Park City. And honestly, if the phone's ringing between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., it's always something bad, right? And it's always tied to that place where I'm 2,000 miles away from. And then early warnings, right? You want to make sure, hey, if there's some intermittent heating or cooling or degradation going on, maybe your system's short cycling. It's still heating and cooling, but it's not doing it at the same efficiency that you've had. That's something that we want to think about too. Like, hey, I don't need to get somebody out there today, but I have it scheduled within the next week. Cooling severe alerts, exactly what it sounds like. So some of the things would be major catastrophic failures that we know are about to happen. It's not turning on, or it's just completely running and just blowing hot air for no reason on those really hot summer days. Next. Cooling intermittent, again, what we talked about, pump failures, blockages in the condensate line, float switch stuck. Those are all super easy fixes for anyone, to be honest. It's, but if you don't know, that's what causes you to get that emergency truck roll out there. So these are some of the things that we can definitely help out with and make people a little bit more efficient with their investments. So again, heating severe, not really a whole lot of surprise here, but you know, the fan's not working. There's a safety issue going on with the system. Dirty or broken flame sensor, that's something that you really want to pay close attention to. So we're able to pull this through a lot of our algorithms to make sure that we're giving the most intelligent information to the account owner, but also we could provide this information with your permission to the pro when they go out there. So you have the right level technician going out there, and hopefully they're going out there with the right part the first time. One of the worst things that you want to have happen is I show up on a Friday afternoon, I don't have the part, hey, I can't get there, can't get back to you till Monday or Tuesday, right? We want to make sure we're arming people with data. Furnace shutdowns, something that's very serious here, especially when we're dealing with a natural gas or any type of fossil fuel. So if our Nest Protect, which monitors carbon monoxide and smoke, knows that there's a leak or detects CO or smoke, it's going to send an automatic message to that thermostat and shut down your furnace to make sure you're no longer circulating smoke or CO through the house, right? It's a huge liability. It's a life safety event. It will still keep it at emergency temperatures, just because we also don't want an entire, I call the pipes to burst in a house. So we do think about that. But these are some really important things that we think about when we want to make sure that life safety is always top of mind, and knowledge. So if there is something that's going on, as the account owner, you're going to get it on your phone immediately. Next slide. Intermittent alerts, again, something that's not as not as important compared to, say, a furnace shutdown or a severe alert. But these are things that you want to get ahead of to avoid a larger cost coming out of your pocket. Some key differentiators we talked about earlier, but let's kind of recap: affordability, access from anywhere, system care, super easy install. And again, I would always think about that energy rebate that you can get back on the back end as well. So we talk about the full portfolio, and a lot of this information, I know I'm throwing it at you. I'm just trying to make sure we're expedient with time, but we'll be sending a lot of this information out as well. But right now you have 3 different options. So you have the Nest Learning Thermostat, Nest E Thermostat, and Nest Thermostat that we just launched earlier this week. Depending on the look, feel, and the type of system that you have, it gives you a lot of different options, right? So if you want to go super high-end communicating system, it's a really nice building, 3 heat, 2 cool, humidification, dehumidification, all those fun things. Nest Learning Thermostat. If it's a single stage type of operation, or 2 heat, 1 cool, or 1 cool, 2 heat, depending what it is, you have a couple other options there. And the beauty of the Home Depot is, because of our partnership and them also having a pro wing, you have access to all 3. Next.
Brad, just really quickly, in the differentiators there, the notifications that you have talked about previously with the CO2 and all of those other things are available in the software for all 3.
Yes.
It's just the complication of what your heating and cooling looks like that will depend on which of these you choose. Is that?
Yep, 100%. And it's not only the new units that are going out the door, everything that's lit up today and is attached to Wi-Fi, which they all are for the most part, that software is being pushed down. So it doesn't matter. All 3 of those will have access to that type of information and algorithms. That's
awesome.
Yep. We talked about this a little bit earlier about just availability, but what the new Nest thermostat, the one in the center, and the one in Nest Learning Thermostat on the far left, are widely available throughout all the different channels that we work. So pro, energy, retail. And when we talk about the Nest E, that is available within the professional channel. Being that Home Depot does have a large pro business, and right over Brian's head, you can see it actually says pro. That gives them ability and some capabilities that some of the other partners don't have. And we think about the target audience. The tech adopters were really the people that were starting off a couple years ago. And we think about what this 129 thermostat in the middle means. It's a stable suburbanites. It's the rental properties. It's a little bit of a more cost efficient, easy way to step into smart home. And by the way, these are all Energy Star as well. And then, so I just want to give a quick overview on some of our, go ahead, Monica, please going forward. Quick overview on some of our security platforms as well. Talked about it earlier, but the Nest Yale Lock, it's a great product. You have ability to set new codes based on people's times and when they want to come in and out of the out of a rental property. So if it's somebody that's like, it's a handyman that's going in there, or a super, they have a certain code. It could be, you could wipe the code for any time a new tenant comes in, but has a lot of different colors: satin nickel, oil, polished brass. Really easy to install. It took me about 12 to 15 minutes, and I'm not a super handy person. If you have Wi-Fi, you're able to control it from anywhere as long as it's connected and you're connected as well. So that's a really nice feature as well. Some of the hardware and some additional key benefits. Talked about it, assignable codes, auto lock to give the people inside a little additional safety. One-touch locking, which is always really nice, especially if you're dealing with a whole lot of groceries or you're coming in and out and you want to do your PIN code quick. And notifications and history, so you know what's going on when it's happening. So if you have a vacant building, you want to know who's going in, who's going out, what time they're going in, and some additional details like that. We talked about some additional safety portfolio. The Google Nest Protect, been out for a long time, and it's an amazing product. So carbon monoxide and smoke. One of the best features of it that I personally love, because especially a couple of years ago when the kids were young, as you walk under it at night, it actually illuminates your pathway like a nightlight would, and it fades out behind you. I mean, at one point on our top level, it looked like a landing strip. We had night lights plugged in everywhere. This is something that can kind of take care of a couple of different cases at the same time, but it is split spectrum, so it detects slow, smoldering fires and fast-moving fires as well. If you ever have an issue and we know something's going on, it doesn't matter if I'm in Florida, California, or up north, if it detects smoke or CO, I'm going to get an automatic message on my phone, right? And most of the time it's because one of the girls burned something when they were making some food. But again, you want to know what's happening at your properties, and this is going to give you some of that information. Digging in a little bit deeper, color-coded alerts, so you know exactly what's going on. I actually just got an alert before saying, hey, we're going to do a sound check, because it does have a microphone and it will speak to you, and it'll say, heads up, there's smoke in the basement, or heads up, there's carbon monoxide detected in the den. So we do check the microphones, make sure they're all working. We need Wi-Fi to set these all up so they're all connected. But the beauty of it is, even if your Wi-Fi goes down and it detects smoke or CO in the basement, it's going to send an automatic message to all the other Nest Protects through a language we call thread, and all of them are going to give you that verbal alert, heads up, there's smoke in the basement, heads up, there's carbon monoxide in the den, so you know what's going on. And the other thing that I love about it is the voice that we use. We actually tested a lot of different things. We found that a lot of people, especially kids, can sleep through a fire alarm or a smoke alarm. A mother's voice, they actually wake up for. And we actually use a mother's voice saying, hey, heads up, there's smoke in the basement, emergency, and they'll set off the audible alarm. Unfortunately, we don't have like a Philadelphia version that can really say, hey, let's go and get going, like where I grew up from my mom, but I'd say the voice that we chose is probably the best one. Next slide, please, Juan. Thank you. So some of the key benefits, just to rehash it, battery and wired, right? So depending on what your local regulations are, path light gives you illumination through the dark, wireless interconnect, so making sure everything's connected, and that split spectrum detecting both slow and fast fires. And then we talked about some of the other integrations. So if Nest Protect goes off or carbon monoxide or smoke, automatically your cameras are going to turn on and start recording. And they're doing that because it's a life safety event. Same thing, if your Nest Protect goes off and detects something, it's going to tell your Nest thermostat, hey, heads up, shut down that HVAC. That's probably going to be the main driver, that smoke or CO event, right? So, and then we also can detect when you're home and when you're away. So we have additional sensors inside the Nest Protect, and it's going to say, hey, heads up, thermostat. We know Brad's not there today because he didn't walk by it, right? So, and all these devices are communicating in the background. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or work through Brian or Rebecca. We're here to support in any way possible. I know I threw a lot of information at you, and we will be getting some additional stuff out there. But any ways that we can help kind of go into some of your national events or your regional events and partner, I have a whole team of people that work within the Pro Channel. We have some third-party rep firms that can go out there and help out as well. But again, the Home Depot is your smart home destination, no matter if it's within pro or retail. I know you guys have a great partnership, and we're here to support in any way possible.
Brad, thank you so much for being here. We actually have a couple questions if I can hang on to you.
Sure.
And also, just by the way, the new Nest Aware, I love those notifications because I can tell it we've had some work going on in an empty property, and I was able to tell it who my contractors were, and it logs when they're there.
Yep.
So that I know when I get billed, when they were there. And then it doesn't give me the same notifications for them as when someone who I wasn't aware was going to be there. It gives me those differently. So I love that part of being able to put the Nest Aware on my new on the doorbell piece. So that has been awesome for those of you who are using the doorbell and have not seen that new upgrade. It is super helpful, especially if you're doing property turnovers, having people go through the property, or using a contractor on the property. It can be great for that. All of these pieces are so awesome. Working with the and I just went through and reinstalled all of the lights to the new, I guess Hue is that true? The new, are they the preferred provider with Assistant now?
Who's that? I'm sorry.
The Hue lights
They are
product?
one of our, yeah, they're one of our partners. Yeah, we have thousands of different partners, but we've done a lot with Hue over the years. Yes.
And Home Depot just had a new display at their store when I went through and bought the new bridge and everything to go with that. And that's been awesome in the rental properties as well, when we've been trying to show them and that sort of thing. So that's been awesome. So look for those at your Home Depot store. I know that a lot of your stores are showing those as a kind of end cap and display right now, and really pushing those, and those have been terrific. So for investors, a lot of people are loving this for their rentals and Airbnbs especially. But my question for you is, for those people who have a lot of different properties and they're installing these, what is best practice for having these? Do we need a different Gmail and try to keep them all like different in those accounts? Do we set them up? Right now I've got them all in my account. And then part two to that question that some people have asked here in the chat is, well, the reason I set it up in my account and not let the residents take them on is I want to get the notification. But some of the people in the chat have said, is there a way for the resident also to get some of those notifications as things are happening?
Yeah. So the first part is, as a property owner, every state and county has different rules of like who owns the actual control, right? So I always defer to whatever those local regulations are. But say for example, I have a series of like 10 Subway restaurants, or sorry, my phone's going off, or hairstylists, whatever these buildings are. I could have it all on one master account, and I can see all those accounts from one app. So I don't have to keep logging in and logging out of, Brad Grovich 1, Brad Grovich 2 at Gmail, right? So you want to make sure you have it all in there. I would recommend probably having a little bit of separation of church and state. So you have your personal Gmail for your stuff that you have at your house, and then maybe set up another Gmail account that's going to manage your properties, right? That's probably the easier way to do it. When it comes to giving people access, right? It's again, it's going to be up to whatever those local regulations are. What we don't want is as a property owner, like being creepy, right? So we don't want to make sure that there's cameras inside, right? You want to make sure they're always protected. I'd imagine all cameras and stuff like that you guys have would be external facing anyway for the broader property.
Yes. We tell people that even in rentals and Airbnbs both, no internal cameras, only external.
Yep. And that makes a ton of sense because it all comes back down to privacy. Now, when it comes to like say a thermostat or something like that, there are abilities to like set a temperature range. Again, I don't know what the local regulations are about who controls the thermostat, if they're paying for it. So we can look into that as far as who's going to get access and control, especially when it comes to some of those alerts. You want to make sure that if I do get a severe heating alert and I'm the tenant, that I'm actually going to act on it and call. Now, I would think most people would, because it's going to be their own personal comfort of either being really hot or really cold. But we can look into how that works in a rental market.
And it does vary state by state, because in Ohio, as the owner, I am responsible in the end, even if the tenant turns on the utilities. If they leave, I am responsible for anything that they have accrued as owner. So it is all me.
Yep. So I would just say, just check with that first. That's probably your best way to go. Because even when you look at different counties have different rules, right? So some people say, I want a fire and smoke detector in every room. Other ones are say, I want one per level, right? So we always say, it's up to you, whatever your local regulations are.
The other thing that we have done, and just curious if you have some advice, is if I don't want to keep Wi-Fi on the entire time, we've done the good old-fashioned Sprint or T-Mobile MiFis. I think they all call them something different, but with Verizon, at least they're MiFis, and then hook them to those. So we're not, locked into necessarily a contract for ongoing services, and then run those off those while we're waiting for a new resident to come in and activate Wi-Fi. In all my student rentals and in all the Airbnbs, we put Wi-Fi in them anyway, because in our opinion, having a high-tech home provides better residents in those student rentals. So we've got the Google Mesh system installed, and we leave it there and pay for the Wi-Fi in our student rentals, which allows, of course, all of this tech to run off of it. But any advice or input on that? Is that an okay way to do that? What's your...
You can connect the mesh network to a MiFi as long as it has a central Wi-Fi that you're using. You're probably always just better off, unless you know something's going to sit for a while, just leaving it on altogether. But it's really just your own personal preference. But you are 100% correct. Smart home devices inside of a house will allow you to kind of get a better tenant and probably charge more, right?
We do. Okay, we've got some questions over here in the panel too that I have not been keeping up with. The question is about an Airbnb. It says, we have Wi-Fi. My goal would like to make sure that entry code is changed after every guest checks out. Now this through the Airbnb with unit within a building. I have consulted Home Depot several times. I need to know whether to get only a lock or a lock in some sort of router to buy to accomplish this.
So on the Nest GL lock, when I use it for my rental property, you have the lock on it, and then you have we call a border router, right? That you just plug into the wall, and then that's already connected into the Wi-Fi that's established in the unit. What I can do is through my app, I can say Rebecca's coming in on Sunday afternoon, and she leaves on Saturday. I can set a code for Rebecca. Hey, this is going to be your 4-digit code for the week, and then it expires. And then there's always going to be a master code as the owner, and you can even give that same master code to the cleaner who's coming, or they could have their own that that's only good from Sunday afternoon or Sunday at 8 a.m. till 12 when you're expecting your next rental. So, and then you will know when they come in and out.
Okay, perfect.
And then you would just change that code every time, because if you keep the same code, then the person who rented it 3 weeks ago can still show up and get in.
Well, and that's why they want to change it. So they do need that router to be able to do that, especially.
It comes in the box, so
Okay.
it's like a simple plug that comes with the lock.
I've got one. I just don't remember doing it separately, but okay. And then another question: does the Nest Protect support if this then that?
I do believe there is a integration. I would have to just double check. If you go into if this then that website, I'm sure if you type in Nest Protect, you can. We've had so many thousands of different integrations over the years. I know that the thermostat was definitely on there from years ago, but my guess is yes. But again, I would just ask you to confirm.
Okay, and then they're asking about a subscription fee for product. I'm not sure I understand.
So we don't have a subscription fee.
Right.
On the cameras. Like if you want to have recording or multiple days worth, then yes, there is. I think it's part of the Nest Aware package. The beauty of it is we did this a couple months ago. It's a all you can eat fee. So I want to say it's like $6 a month. So it's not like it's $5 for every camera. It's $6 for that location. So if I have 5 cameras or 2, it's still $6 a month.
And that Nest Aware product is the one that I was talking about that
Yeah.
does the face recognition on your doorbells as well. So if you're using all of those products together, it just makes sense to be able to do that all together. And it's
Yeah, I mean, we also have stuff like package detection. Like we know when a package is dropped off at your front door, and they'll say, "Hey, heads up, package is there."
Yep.
By the way, somebody also picked it up. Hopefully, it was you or your family.
it does that, and it actually at least thinks it knows the difference between dropping off and picking up.
Right.
It will actually say those as two different messages from that camera. So that's awesome. Then the last question that we've gotten is, well, it's actually a statement. George says you can set an email account and have the emails automatically forward to you and then the resident from those notifications. So emails, yes. The actual, when the event is happening, with the notification on screen, notification is a little different. So that's the last of the questions we have here. I'm going to ask if you have any other questions. We're going to let Brad breathe for a minute since he's been on stage this whole time. If you have any other questions, if you want to just direct them to the National REIA staff, info@nationalreia.org. You also have Brian to reach out to, and then we can forward those on to Brad and get your questions answered and make sure that you understand what the capabilities of the products are. They have been terrific for us. We had started using them before the crisis. With the crisis, it has been unbelievable to be able to have them in place and use that technology just to get us over some of these humps. It's been such a good offering, Brad. We really love the products and appreciate your taking time to
absolute pleasure. And so we're here to help in any way possible, and just appreciate the partnership.
Thanks so much.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, gang, we are at 5:08. We generally try to be finished by now. I can run really, really quickly through these slides so that I'm not keeping you very long on a Friday. Feel free, you're not going to offend me if you need to drop off at this point. Also know that you do get a copy of these, and I have tried, knowing that we might go a little long and I needed to, and some of you needed to drop off, I did try to put most of the comments that I would make about the slides, I've actually put on the slides. So, because I know, Tom, in the few daylight hours we have left of this year, I know many of you want to run out on a Friday and take advantage of those. So really quickly, we will run through the economic impact slides for this week. So I got a little happy there, click happy, and missed my screen. So let me share screen. And so, mostly good news in September. So all things are looking positive. We're at a 7.9% unemployment rate. That is down. The monthly jobs report shows the trends for unemployment are continuing to improve. Sectors like leisure and hospitality, retail, and healthcare are responsible for the adding back of those jobs. We added 661,000 jobs in this month. Well, most of these stats, please keep in mind, are from September. The very few of them are released in October by the time we were able to put this together. So the jobs added in September were 661,000. It's a lot of jobs. I think a lot to feel positive about. Some of the news media did not report it as positively because we had projected maybe a few more than that, but still all heading in the right direction. Also, jobless claims fell to 837,000. Recent data show more of the same in terms of adding on jobs. Improvement, they feel like, is slowing a little bit. And this is usually a huge blockbuster indicator, but they feel like that maybe you're not hearing as much about it because the election coming up, and they also need to understand the impact of the possible stimulus package. Although, as Charles said, with gridlock, that may not be moving. We just have to, this is kind of a wait and see on where this ends up going. However, consumer confidence, you can see, is heading back up again, up. And it's actually the biggest surge in 17 years in terms of an upturn. Again, consumer confidence, the reason we care is when people are confident, they are willing to buy those homes we're putting on the market after a rehab, and they're willing to pay a little bit more in rent and to move into different properties because they're feeling confident about the market. Also in housing, we talked about jobless claims in October, so that you saw the September numbers. The October numbers, you know, we're heading down again. And so the improvement is continuing, even if it is slowing, which it may do and generally does at the end of the year anyway, because a lot of that, you know, if you're talking about construction and other jobs, it slows heading into the fall and winter months, but still, again, in a positive direction. You see the mortgage rate is still down a basis from last week. Mortgage rates are just incredible. Everybody kept thinking that those were going to move in the other direction. They're not. They are still the driver in home sales right now, we think, although credit availability is continuing to tighten because lenders are cautious. They're a little bit worried about what might happen. And so availability is getting tough, even though the rates are continuing to fall. The high home prices are refusing to yield to seasonal patterns. So I have to tell you, in July, the realtors were predicting that, you know, after August, you're going to see things coming down. And every single week they keep saying, oh, those numbers are going to, you know, the numbers are going to fall, the numbers are going to fall. They are not. So seasonal patterns is after everybody goes back to school, generally those numbers in home prices begin to fall because sellers start to get a little panicky. The market gets a little softer. There aren't as many buyers at that point. That is not happening right now. So median listing prices are again up 12.9% year over year. Listings are down, time on market 13 days faster year over year. Home buyer demand is just driving this like crazy. And we'll talk about why I believe that's true in just a second. Another look at the housing market recovery index that the realtors publish. Many of the numbers in this index are above the baseline here. So overall housing, so baseline is at 100, and overall housing recovery index is 110.6. Housing demand is huge at 120, pace of sale 117, listing price growth still at way up at 101, and new supply is actually up just a little bit. We'll look at that here in this next slide. New gross supply finally up just a little bit. So while the new supply component of the housing market recovery index is above the baseline this week, it's only the second consecutive week at or above recovery, while buyer demand component has notched 22 weeks above 100. So this supply number is why prices are still just kind of out of reach for some people, because they keep going up and up and up. But it tends to be overall excellent. Now, this is another look at that chart just in a different way. And you can see here, recovery index is still incredibly high on the housing side. In terms of sentiment of buyers and sellers, 56% think it's a good time to sell. 54% think it's a good time to buy, according to Fannie Mae. By the way, I want to give the realtors and Adam Data a big thank you for the data that they provide here, and that's what's used in this presentation. So despite tighter home buying sentiment rose in September, for the first time since February, a bigger majority said it was a good time to sell than a good time to buy. And if increasing sentiment leads to more sellers, it'll be a good thing overall for the home market in general, buyers, sellers, and overall transactions. This is what I was talking about in terms of why I think additionally you're seeing home buyers just enter the market. 69% of respondents cited COVID-19 as the reason they purchased. 31% were going to anyway, but a lot of people have been sitting at home looking at four walls, and it's the same four walls, and it's the four walls that didn't bother them much when they were able to get out and about and do other things. But now that they're working from home and they're entertaining from home and they're eating at home and they and their entire family are at home, it's time to get out. it's time to do something different, and that home is getting old, and it's smaller than they ever realized it was, or it's older than they ever realized it was, and so they're moving on. And I think that's really causing a lot of the demand. The median listing price going up, up, up. So as I said, traditionally September is a great time to buy. Right now though, those numbers are not coming down. Home prices are still going up. And Adam even says that even though there was damage to the economy with COVID, the Q2 rose annually. 93% of the metro places analyzed were up in home prices, and the increase in the median home price from Q2 19 to 20 is about 6%. So even with everything else going on, you're seeing a 6% increase in home prices. Days on the market as well continue to go down, and that is a real problem for some people who really want to be in homes right now. They're just not staying on the market very long because people are snapping them up. And this, again, nobody expected heading into this fall season for these numbers to continue going down. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in October. Pending sales at this point, much higher than years past. I think this slide says it all. Look at that gap of where in years past the pending sales are at this time of year and continue to go down, and look how much higher they are this year. It's just risen, 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 and you know, still very, very high. That's because there are 529,000 fewer homes for sale right now as compared to last year. Some of that is because you've got older home sellers that can wait it out, and they don't want people coming through their home, or they don't want to have to go look for a new home right now. There's a lot of reasons for that, but just tight inventory. Here's another reason that it's a challenge is people who have the resources to do so are buying a second home. Again, they're tired of being stuck in that first home. They would normally be vacationing, but don't feel comfortable doing that. And so they're buying a second home somewhere else. I think Whitney Nusley's on the call talking about her Airbnbs in Knoxville are actually full. Well, Knoxville's a very low place for COVID right now. They have a very low incidence, so a safe place. People feel safe, and so good time to be in that area. And a lot of people are experiencing that. But those who have the money to buy that second home, many of them are jumping into that. Here's another thing: home buyers in general, the younger are more than 1 million 23 to 30-year-olds move back home since February, so it's feeling a little tight in that family home. And you can see this number in March, April, and then May of those young adults that have moved back home. So that space needs to be larger if they've moved back home. And then after they've moved back home, they're ready to get out. So if they have enough savings, then they're trying desperately to get back out, and not into a rental, but into a home. Traffic conversion rates are at an all-time high in some markets, and that's because those who are tech savvy are checking that online. They're getting pre-qualified, and they're making appointments, and if that home fits the bill, they're not waiting around. They are absolutely buying right then. And for those of you who are doing rehabs and getting them onto the market, the better you can stage them, the better you're going to be and the higher you're going to sell for, because the people that are looking for these homes right now do not want to have to do the work to rehab them. They want to get out of where they are and into somewhere that they feel is ready right then to move in. The better you stage it, the more ready it looks, the more comfy it looks. So staging a home right now can have even more impact, in my opinion, than it's ever had, even though I think over time that's been something that especially the younger buyers have been looking for anyway, is that ready to go home. The top 10 U.S. housing markets most vulnerable to the impact of COVID-19, sadly, are all in the Northeast. You can see this here, how many of them are in New Jersey and Connecticut. Then you've got Delaware, Illinois, and Maryland sprinkled in as well. And Adams' qualifications for ranking them as high risk are because of the percentage of homes currently facing possible foreclosure, the portion of homes with mortgage balances that exceeded the estimated property value, and the percentage of local wages required to pay for major home expenses. For those of us in the Midwest, mostly good news, except for, sorry to say, Illinois. The Adams Q3 2020 COVID Housing Impact Report, that out of those top 50 markets that they have put into the riskiest, only 4 western counties among the top 50 were noted. They were in Northern California and Hawaii. And then Illinois had the only 6 that appeared from the Midwest were all in Illinois in terms of those zip codes and counties. The markets less vulnerable in terms of these states were Colorado, Indiana, Missouri, Texas, and Wisconsin, and the counties least at risk were in Texas, Colorado, and Indianapolis. So those are all markets that seem to be holding in and doing relatively well in terms of holding value and being economically safer for their residents. You can also see, this was in June, so a lot of this could have changed by then, but this is a stat that we always go back to in our annual report, is that U-Haul migration patterns. For those of you who aren't, haven't seen my industry reports before, the reason we use this is because U-Haul monitors who's coming and going from states, and they adjust their prices accordingly. So if you're leaving a state where everybody's leaving, they will jack up the price. If you're going to a state where people are coming, then the prices go down because they want you to bring the U-Haul there, and then they get it, you know, to be able to get it back to the places where everybody's leaving. So this is how we track U-Haul. You can, the data is year over year, and you can see the out-migration areas where, unfortunately, you've had some hard-hit COVID markets. You see here on these coasts, especially. That's not a big surprise, and that's not much different from trends as they were. So out-migration are here in orange, in-migration in green. It is such a big deal for people trying to get into a new home that even land has gone kind of crazy in terms of sales. And that has not been a trend over time, but 60% of land brokers rated their markets as hot or on fire. And during this period, this was through July. So if I can't find a home, I'm going to build. And that continues to be a trend as well. On the rental side, just really quickly, NMHC through their rent tracker is showing the lowest of the months. Well, not the lowest, but it's one of the very low months that we've seen. October through the 6th, knowing that most rent is due through the 5th. Through the 6th, we're at 79.4%. And then you can see this as a trend year over year. You know, we're starting to fall off now that I think some of the stimulus has started to fade and dollars are tight. Those numbers are starting to come down from last year. So let's see how that kind of finishes through the last of the year. Although it was super surprising to see that October seems to be a tough month no matter what. So we'll see what November brings with those numbers. So thank you again. These will all go out to everyone as an attachment to the email when Lori sends it with the replay that's available. If you have questions, please make sure that, especially for the Google team, make sure you forward those to us. We'll get the answers to you as soon as possible. Thank you again for being with us this week. Enjoy the last, possibly, of the sunshine, hopefully not, but certainly one of the last of our calls that happens within daylight savings time. So enjoy, and we will see you next month. Have a great one, guys.